197 in Woodstock, where he lost control going around a curve in his 2006 Ford truck. The truck then caught on fire with the young man trapped inside the vehicle. Madden was pronounced dead on the scene. The accident remains under investigation. Last week, we ran a story about a couple of men that seemingly mugged a gentleman from Mohegan Sun and dropped him off at a Jewett City business located at 69 North Main Street here in the borough of Jewett City. State police had put out a bulletin looking for information to identify the two men that were pictured in an elevator, and state police have announced that they have identified the suspects in question. More as this story develops. Are you planning on sending your child to Griswold Rec's summer camp this year? Well, if you are, and if you register your child before April 8th, you will receive $10 off per child per week. That means if you have 8 kids, you'll be saving $80 a week. Pretty substantial. To learn more about this program and other great program details, check out their website, griswoldrec.org. That's griswoldrec.org. The 8 a.m. news has been brought to you by Dish Car Sales of Franklin. 30 years of satisfied customers. Don't just wish, make it Dish.
All right, good morning. Let's take a look at the forecast right now for Eastern Connecticut. And here he is. He has one job. That's to do the weather. It's Paul Lash.
Good morning, everybody.
One job, Paul.
One job.
Go ahead.
All right. Temperature downtown Jewett City right now is 36 degrees. Some sun this morning, then increasing clouds this afternoon. Highs will be around 65 degrees. Again, the wind continues to blow between 5 to 10 miles per hour. For tonight, partly cloudy, lows around 43. And for your Thursday, well, it's going to be again intervals of clouds and sunshine in the morning will give way to more clouds later in the day. Highs again will be around 65 degrees. And for Thursday night, clear skies with a few passing clouds, lows around 40 degrees. And that's your weather from SNSN on this Wednesday, 04/07/2021.
All right, thank you very much. Okay, it's 8:03, and just like we announced on social media, but of course, if you're sitting there waiting on Grizzled now for things to come up, guess what? You're probably not going to find it.
Oh yeah, there's a bunch of stuff going on out there.
Oh, I went on a little rant last night on Grizzled Now, so telling people like, look, Grizzled Now is not a news page. It's a community page. It's different. It has its uses for what it is. But don't sit there and complain if you don't know what's going on because you're sitting there and thumb scrolling through Grizzled Now.
Yeah.
It's just not going to happen. I don't know what's going on. Well, it's because you're not looking the places that
I know. Everybody sees something going on. They ask the question, and they get 17 different answers.
That's true.
Yeah, well.
So that being said, let's bring in the Board of Finance chairman. It is, of course, Scott Davis. Hello, Scott. How are you?
Good morning, gentlemen.
Good morning.
So we understand there was a Board of Finance meeting. A lot of people saying, hey, where's the Board of Finance meeting?
Yeah, there was one. You're right.
Yeah.
I know. I tried to get on. I couldn't get on.
You couldn't get on for real? Really?
Yeah, I tried logging in, and it kept saying, waiting for somebody to bring it in, waiting for somebody to bring it in. So I said, oh, okay, that's it.
Huh.
I figured it didn't go on. But anyway, you're here. We'll find out.
Yeah.
So there was a special meeting of the Board of Finance last night to deal with the cost overruns. Actually, you have another one tomorrow night, too, that deals with just the budget.
Correct. Yeah.
Right? So you have two special...
Yeah, last night was the senior center or the new senior center, and tomorrow evening is like a workshop, budget presentations and stuff like that.
So if you could give us some sort of a digest of what happened last night at the Board of Finance meeting. Are we any closer than we were a couple weeks ago?
We are significantly closer. So we met last evening, had some discussion. The senior building committee chair had come back with the letters we had requested from the building official, from the fire marshal, regarding some CO items and kitchen items. They had met, I guess, a couple of times in the 2 to 3 weeks since our last meeting. Had dialed in a few of those open items and some costs. Came in with a number. We kind of went back and forth, put forth a motion for, and I'm gonna kind of paraphrase. It was an extremely long motion, but it was a motion to appropriate no more than, I believe it was $760,000 to come out of the general fund. There were specific items that were earmarked, which corresponded with the list that they provided us as part of that motion, to then go to referendum, so that the voters have their say and can vote accordingly. Coming out of surplus, it would represent no tax increase. That will get the senior center finished to a point where perhaps it wasn't every single thing that was on the list. It wasn't necessarily just the things that they needed to get a CO. It was kind of that, middle of the road, kind of fit and finish on all those open items. So really, at this point now, it's up to the selectmen to have their vote to then schedule the referendum, and for the taxpayers to vote on it. But so that's kind of where we're at.
What was the feeling of the finance board? I mean, they feel now that since it's been decreased by a couple of $100,000, that they're more positive of having this thing done.
Well, I mean, the vote was split down party lines. It's a tough situation, and I kind of opened last night, I offered just kind of my thoughts on where we should go, and you and I, or the three of us, we've chatted enough or texted back and forth, and you shows enough that I said, at some point we need to get this thing finished. We need to figure out how to get it finished, and it's not an easy situation, but at the same time, we're charged with a responsibility. We can't let our personal feelings and emotions interfere or sway that.
Right.
It's hard for me to speak for everyone on the board on why they voted the way that they did, because we don't poll our members, hey, why are you voting in the affirmative, why are you voting in the negative? I think that based on the vote, I can only surmise that there were those that said, okay, you know what, let's go this way. We still are above what the surplus percentage is, and I think that there were those that just weren't necessarily comfortable with voting in the affirmative, or voting in the affirmative, but I don't know what those reasons are really.
That's unfortunate, because what could happen is their negativity could spread out across the residents. They're going to come up and could cause the vote to go negative.
That's unfortunate too. They still are in the process of going through some grants. There are two that are out there that are kind of I'm going to say in limbo. One is the OPM grant, and I believe that would have gone through the state bonding commission. And if memory serves me correctly, if that had been approved, that could be enough money to effectively finish it without having to go into the general fund. The problem is that the bonding commission has canceled every single one of their meetings since the beginning of the year, and we have no idea when they're going to necessarily meet again. The other one is the USDA grant that is in process. We're hoping to have an answer for that. We're told that we could have an answer within the next couple of weeks, which still basically on the timing of the referendum. If that came through, based on the timing of the referendum and that delay, we can delay the purchase of kitchen equipment. That money would still be able to be used, and not as much money would necessarily have to come out of the general fund, or surplus for that, because then we would be able to utilize that. My personal feeling was, and we had been told time and time again, that there were agreements that were made with the subcontractors to extend their commitment for their firm number, and to commit to coming back to finish that up. but it was only for really a set period of time. And certainly if we were to have said, okay, let's wait 3 or 6 months and see if any of that grant money comes in, we could be looking at obviously significantly more cost, and still no guarantee we're going to get that grant money to begin with.
What was changed to get from 900 plus thousand down to 760,000?
So a number of weeks ago, I want to say it was somewhere along the lines of probably 3 weeks ago, we were given a kind of a spreadsheet on what the open items are, and a couple of different columns on there. The bare minimum to get a CO, what's required. The senior center bare minimum, which is a step above, and finish it in a comfortable sense, and then what the full value was. And those numbers ranged from, 500 and almost 527,000 to about 975,000. That was the swag. So, they, like I said, they identified those, I think those items that truly they could do without, yet still have a nicely finished and habitable senior center. So some of the items that were taken out in the proposal that they gave us last evening, an operable partition, some window treatments, some visual display boards, project screens, and the fireplace insert. Those were removed from the the original numbers. That brought us to 772,186. And then the motion was for, like I said, 760, with, I think it was the omission within that motion of the wall protection item for 9,200.
Wow.
Well, are you happy with the number? You don't have to be. I mean, I'm just curious.
That's not as easy a question. I mean, it's very straightforward, Mike, but it's not as easy a question as you'd think to answer. Am I happy with the number? I'm going to answer it like this. I'm still not really happy that we had to deal with this, but putting that aside, it is what it is, and we did have to deal with it. So, having, looking at it from that perspective of just say, okay, here's our charge. Here's our charge as a Board of Finance. I'm not going to look at it from the perspective of, crying over spilt milk or anything like that. Why did this happen, or how did that happen? But just looking at it from the basis of, here's our charge. Do we fund it or don't we fund it? I think that's a middle of the road. That isn't necessarily every single thing on the list at this fit and finish. It's not unpainted walls and no floor coverings, bare concrete floor. It's kind of a happy medium. I think that finishes the build out. It makes it occupiable. It also looks out for the protection of our assets of the town. It provides that investment, the continued and final investment in the community by the completion of that senior center. And we were fortunate, I guess I would have to say, enough that there have been budget years where our expenses have come in under budget. We were fortunate that in previous budget years, the tuition that was raised by the Board of Education exceeded what their projections were. So over a number of years, we were able to build, that surplus to, and I'll throw a couple of numbers out here, to about 15.34% of the budget, or a little over a $5.6 million surplus. So we were fortunate, or are fortunate, I guess, enough that by earmarking the 760,000, which, like I said, if some of those grants, one or both of those grants, are actually obtained, and we're fortunate if that happens, it's going to be less than that 760 number. In the event that they're not realized, that still puts us at a 13.26%, of the budget. Now those are this year numbers, as Dan had pointed out, and puts our surplus at a little over $4.8 million. generates a situation or creates a situation. We're fortunate enough that it isn't an additional tax or a levy, on the taxpayers to complete it. So I guess,
that's
yeah,
that's a positive.
happy. I don't know if I'd say I'm happy, but am I comfortable with how it worked itself out, or perhaps could work itself out? Yes, I am comfortable with that.
What about that 1.1 million? Is it 1.1 million they just got from the state from the COVID thing? What happens to that?
That was 1.4, I think they got.
What's going to happen with that money? Does that go
Yeah.
into?
So from what I understand, we've asked that question a couple of times, and it's kind of like what came first, the chicken or the egg, or putting the cart before the horse. We've been told that we're going to be getting this money. However, all of the guidance has not yet been provided that tells us what we can actually use that money for. So we're still waiting for final guidance, I believe, on that. My understanding is, at least preliminarily, that money could not be used for the completion of the senior center based on the initial guidance, but it possibly could be used as an offset or additional monies towards the water sewer project. It just has to do with how it was written up, I guess.
Well,
I know the town of Plainfield is using theirs for police communication upgrades.
Mm-hmm.
Matter of fact, they had a special meeting or town meeting last night to do a line item transfer for those funds to be available for that project. So,
Right. I think that a key, you brought up a good point, Mike. I think a key part of those monies was that it could be used for infrastructure upgrades. I think was maybe how that was worded.
oh, okay.
Yeah.
I think one thing that's come out of here, and maybe that's something the finance board should recommend, is they put in a procedure in place as any kind of these projects go forward, that there's some kind of a mechanism in place where people report to people to let them know what the hell is going on with the project. We can't let this happen again in the future.
I wholeheartedly agree. I think that this was, I hate to say, I think it was a learning experience, and and I don't mean to say that in terms of to minimize the situation, because I don't mean that at all. But I think that it was a learning experience in what not to do. And I think that there probably was a good faith effort, that I think that there was a genuine belief that all of these cost overruns were going to be able to be covered with grants. I think that people were told that they were going to be able to get this money, that it was kind of pretty much a slam dunk. I don't know that. I wasn't one of the ones that was told that, but it seems like everybody kind of hung their hat on being able to receive these grants. Well, COVID hit and we didn't get any grants. So, I mean, I think you're absolutely right. I think that, and there typically has been in any project, you can look at the school project, you can look at the gas line project. There was always a liaison that came back and reported to us on a monthly basis. That wasn't the case here. Perhaps there does need to be an actual written policy that has to be followed. I think that it's prudent that, and you would never think that you would need to do this, but I think that it's prudent, certainly, that we now are going to need to look at having a policy drafted, written, and adopted, whether either legislatively or by the people, that says, basically, look, if you have monies that are approved at X, then that X number is what it needs to be unadjusted, that you shouldn't be able to adjust things out of a contract to bring that number down to the approved amount, based on the hope or the thought that you're going to be receiving, free monies from elsewhere to be able to balance that project at the end. That there needs to be some sort of a policy, I think, now in place that says, look, if you were approved by the voters or an appropriation by us, and I'll just come up with an arbitrary number, of $1 million, that's $1 million complete. That's not, we're going to, engineer, or we're going to omit, $500,000 or $250,000 out of it to bring the project that finally gets signed, the contract, to $1 million.
Right.
You know, that's my opinion there. I think that we need to close that loophole.
Yeah. Well, you're going to have a test coming up because if the infrastructure one goes, you know, you're talking a few $1 million there. Somebody's going to have to monitor. We don't want the same thing to happen.
No, you're right. You know, sometimes I wonder if you're a fly on the wall, Paul, in some of my conversations, because we have had that conversation, and you know, one of the concerns that I think I have and is shared by a few is, you know, I think the infrastructure project was approved at like, I don't know, $6 million or $6.5 million, if memory serves me correctly. But that was approved in 2019 dollars.
Right.
What does that equate to now in, you know, 2021 dollars? And in more likelihood, when it breaks ground, it's going to be close to 2022 dollars. You know, what happens at that point? How does that get dealt with?
Yeah. Right.
What happens if the referendum goes south and taxpayers vote no? I can tell you in a very small scale that a lot of people are very negative about going to a referendum and spending any more money at all on the senior center. What happens in that case?
Well, you know, I guess from the personal side, from the personal, you know, Scott Davis, the taxpayer side, which I think came out in the first, you know, three special meetings that we held. I understand that frustration. I understand that anger. And I can fully relate to that. However, you know, speaking from the Board of Finance side, the fiduciary side, we have what's the alternative? You know, we have a 7.6, you know, when you include bond costs, it's $7.6 million, a $7.6 million bill that we've got to pay for 20 years that cannot be used, can't be occupied. We've got to insure it. We've got to heat it. We've got to provide electricity. We've got to provide maintenance to it. The longer, you know, abandoned buildings or vacant buildings, the longer that they stay unoccupied and there's no traffic, the more likely they are that they're going to get damaged or broken into, or that there's going to be unknown maintenance issues that happen within the building because people aren't in there all the time checking on it. And that seemingly harmless maintenance issue ends up costing us tens of thousands of dollars. This is the, you know, in my opinion, probably the best case scenario where we can vote on getting that finished, not having to deal with those what ifs and those bad issues, where it's not going to cost the taxpayer anything. It's a zero increase to be able to take that out. In addition to that, you're approving a maximum number. If those two grants that are in the till come to fruition, that number could actually go away, or be reduced. That is also a what if. I get it. You know, I've also heard a lot of negative to that says, oh, we shouldn't do that. They should do it themselves. You know what? What's the alternative? Tell me what the alternative is. Somebody give me a better answer then. Are you going to make them pay for it? There's no money for that. I mean, let's be realistic. They are not a revenue generating entity. They don't have the means to be able to do that. So we're stuck, and we had to come up with a best, what we thought was a best case solution. So if that referendum fails, now I'm sorry, Mike, to be long-winded and finally get to your question. If that referendum fails, I guess we have really three options. Sit and leave it vacant and run the risk of, that first part of what I spoke about, and hope that at some point through grant funding, they can finally get that place finished. Option 2, I guess, would be to put those monies in this year's budget as a as a tax, it would have to go into capital to complete that building. And I think that I talked about that last night, that depending on to what scope it was or scale it was finished at, would amount to be a 0.71 to a 1.2 mil increase just for that, not including everything else. There's another alternative, and that would be that an ordinance would have to be passed that allows the Board of Finance to assess, I'm going to call them, special assessments is what I'm going to call it. That might be incorrect, where you could finance that over a 5-year period in the budget. And depending on the fit and finish, that would be an increase of, an adder to each year's budget of 0.14 mils to 0.26 mils every year for 5 years, just to finish it. So, I mean, I guess, you can pull, you can, I guess, approach it one of two ways. You can just say, screw it, we're not going to vote in favor of this. No way, no how, because I'm too angry and they need to figure it out. How are they going to figure it out? And at some point, it's either going to stay vacant and then we're going to be paying for a building that's going to end up never be used and possibly destroyed.
Yeah. It's unfortunate. I'm sorry, sir.
No, you're fine. You're fine. I'm rambling. I'm sorry.
No, it's sorry to hear that people are holding somebody's negligence against a group of people that earned this damn building over the years because they've been taxpayers for so many years in this town. So it's unfortunate that this is happening. And we also got to remember that these people are still voters. So,
right,
they could come out and vote no for against the senior center, but the seniors could get together when it comes down to voting on the school board or voting on the national budget. They get, screw you, we're not voting for it. Guess what? That could get turned down.
Right.
So,
here's the other thing too about, just want to make it clear about Paul. Paul is almost 78, correct?
Yeah.
Paul is a senior citizen. Paul does not go to the senior center.
No, I don't.
So when he talks about they, he's talking about people that are, or communicants of the senior center.
Sure.
And not himself. But I think it still affects a large portion of the town. And I think this is a big disconnect as far as what the senior center actually does, what Tina Falk actually does at the senior center. It's not just sitting there playing bingo with seniors. It's so many other different programs.
Yeah.
So
and these people got to remember they're going to be there shortly.
I'm eligible now.
I mean, so whatever.
We've. I don't want to politicize things. I don't want to stand on a soapbox and preach. We've become, and it drives me crazy, a society that's kind of, what about me? And if I'm not getting some immediate gratification, then I'm not for it. Now, look, I'm not happy that we have to spend $760,000. I'd rather not be in that situation. But quite frankly, those are the cards that we were dealt. We are in that situation. So let's figure out now how to make it work. That's, at the end of the day, this is an investment in the community, and we need to figure out how to make it work.
I agree. I think you get it done. The money is there, and for a rainy day fund. Well, it's a rainy day. I think you said it that way last time.
Yep. We're, like I said, you're spot on, Mike. We're fortunate.
I'm just echoing your words, actually. So
yeah, I mean, we're fortunate enough to be in that, in that situation where, that money is available. Now, maybe people don't want to spend any of that money at all. I get it. I understand that philosophy. Maybe people have a different plan on how that money should be spent or allocated for other things. I don't know what those are. I understand that philosophy too, but you said it, you're spot on, Mike. You said it the right way. We've got $5.6 million in there. It's a surplus fund, and it's to be used for situations where we're kind of in a dire strait and we need to get ourselves out of it. And this is one of those situations, in my opinion.
Now the 760,000 or whatever the number is in that ballpark.
Yep.
That's not going to hurt the town's credit rating at all, will it? With taking that amount of money.
So no. So of course I'm all of these percentages that I had gotten from the received from the finance director, they're obviously based on this year's budget because next year's budget is not there, and certainly those numbers could change. Percentages could go down slightly based on what next year's budget is, but they could also be unaffected if we go for things like we're under expended, or once again the Board of Ed collects more tuition revenue than what is shown, as revenue. So so there's a swag there, I guess. One of the things that that I did ask the finance director to just confirm is that it's not going to hurt us. And Eric said, well, obviously there are truly no guarantees in life. But it was generally thought that as long as we stay over what that minimum expectation is, a requirement, that we should be okay. And currently by policy, by board of finance policy, there's a requirement that our fund balance be at a minimum of 8.5%. Currently we are at 15.34%. Eric did check with the current auditors. The current auditors said we're comfortable if you guys are anywhere between 8.5% and 17%. The auditing firm prior to the current auditors had come back and said we're comfortable if you are between 12 and 15%. Checking with the bond counsel, they agreed with the previous auditors, and the bond counsel said, look, we're comfortable if you guys are between 12 and 15%. So by taking that full 760 out, if we had to, that puts us at 13.26% based on current numbers. So we're above that minimum that they say they're comfortable with.
And really the last question I have for you, Scott, and I don't know, I don't think this has been addressed yet, but one of the biggest pieces of feedback that I get when we start talking about the senior center and the cost overruns is how did we get from the budgeted number where we went to referendum to an additional $900,000? Where did that come from? And I don't feel from the comments that I've seen that people are more upset about spending the extra money or the money that face it, the taxpayers have already paid.
Sure.
That's in there. How did we get there? And I think that's the biggest piece of information that is missing.
So I can, based on a lot of the questions we've asked and the information that we've gleaned over the last 3 meetings, I guess I can kind of summarize it like this. So the voters approved, I think, a $7.6 million bond in May of 2019. When that number was derived, unknown to us, unknown to the voters, that was derived on plans and specs that apparently were not at 100%. They were at, the number we heard was roughly 60%, could be a number just, greater than 60, but they were incomplete. Now, I can't speak to whether that's normal or not normal. But by the time they got to 100%, and the contract was then to be signed in October of 2019, that number had risen to completion, had risen to about 8.3 million, I believe, if memory serves me correctly. So in order to, I don't know if I want to say this, I'm probably not saying this the right way, but in order to sign that contract and sign it at a number that was at or less than what was appropriated in referendum, there were about $1.3 million worth of items that they said were, in their words, value engineered out of the contract. But out of the $1.3 million worth of items that were valued engineered, a significant portion of those items were items that were actually going to be required to receive your CO when the project was done. So the number was at 8.3 million, about 1.3 million got valued engineered out. That brought the number in about 7 or 7.1 million, plus or minus. And it got signed by the selectmen. One of the other things that had come out was that, and was talked about at one or two of our meetings, was that there was, and I don't know all of the ins and outs of this, but there was some sort of an agreement, I guess was the word that I think we were told, about who was going to be responsible for the road to get to the senior center. That at the time that all of this was going through referendum, there was another project, I guess, that was on the books for the housing authority. And the agreement was whoever was going to be the first one to break ground was going to end up paying for the road. So there was another project that was on the books, from what we were told, by the housing authority. Well, apparently that project didn't come to fruition, and the senior center was the first one that was going to end up breaking ground. And they realized that now they had to pay for this road to get down into, to the senior center, that I think was initially believed that they probably weren't going to have to pay for, because it was going to be that the housing authority was going to break ground on their project first. So it kind of snowballed. The PAC group, pre-COVID and everything, the PAC group went ahead and they saw what the cost overruns. So they were able to do things like renegotiate prices, buy out contracts, and look at, perhaps like kind, lesser quality, but like kind, materials on certain things. And through that process, they were able to bring the completion number, lessen that gap and bring the completion number down to that, 940 or 975 number that we were finally left with.
So what's next? Basically goes to the Board of Selectmen, and then they set a referendum date and we vote. Is that correct?
That is correct.
And what is the number? 760,000 now?
It's 760 ... I don't know. I don't have that written down or readily available. I know it was.
I don't think the exact number really matters.
Yeah, it was
point, 760 something.
Yeah. 760,000 in change, I believe, was the number, and I think that was a no more than number.
So now we're going to have two referendums, then one for the senior center and then one for the budget.
Correct.
Is that true?
That is correct.
Yeah. So I would think that what they got to do now is go to the board, then they got to publicize it or put it out in the paper someplace, right?
Yeah. Part of the initial discussion and the thought on the two referendums, because there were people that said just have one referendum.
No.
The thought process was that really wasn't necessarily going to work well. Certainly to try to give both the budget and this project their own individual fair shake, as it were. But the other school of thought regarding having this done and trying to kind of expedite the process, one was, I mentioned, the subs, but the other one was, if this referendum, depending on how long it takes and it comes forward, if it fails, we still have the opportunity to then look at the possibility of working that into the current proposed budget, because that referendum will be afterwards.
Right. Makes sense.
Yeah. So I think the key comments is it's going to be 760,000 plus, give or take a few, to complete the project. Number two, it's going to go to referendum, and number three, it will be a 0% increase in taxes for the residents.
Correct. Yeah, your item number 3 is kind of spot on. That it's money that's coming out of surplus, number one, so it will have no effect on your tax, on your mill rate. And kind of a 3A, I guess, would be that although it's a 760, there is a possibility that at least one of those grants could possibly be obtained, before the spending of those monies, so that 760 number would be reduced. And I believe that from what we were talking about, not last evening, but the evening before, that the USDA grant is really the one I think that we probably stand the best chance of getting. That would, from what we were told at that meeting, that would pretty much pay for, if not all, a significant amount of the kitchen equipment, which was, $220,000 roughly. So, it'd be, so if that were to happen, then that 760 number would really be reduced by 220.
Sure. Yeah, sounds good.
Anything else you want to mention, Mr. Davis?
No, always a pleasure to be here. I appreciate you having me on.
Well, we certainly appreciate having you, come on. Like last night, I sent Scotty a text message. Oh, at 10 o'clock?
Yes.
And they said, you knew this text message was coming. That's all I said.
Yeah,
So,
probably not appropriate, but I was enjoying a cocktail right about that time. Yes.
That's all right.
Yeah.
That's all right. You've done a lot of hard work for this town, especially lately. This is not an easy time of year. Never mind with budget season and budget workshops. There's one tomorrow night.
Yeah.
And then having to deal with
Yep.
senior center cost overruns as well. So,
Yeah.
So thank you for
Yeah.
everything that you do for
Thanks,
You're
guys.
welcome.
us.
No, you're welcome.
All right. All right. We'll talk soon, sir.
Enjoy your day. Thank you.
You too.
Bye-bye.
All right, Scott Davis from the Board of Finance, and there you go. So,
Well,
what do you say? I mean, it's like you can sit here and you can wordsmith it, but the bottom line is, this is what it is.
yeah. And it's unfortunate to hear it's political.
I don't think he was very political at all. I thought he was very
No,
straightforward.
I'm not saying
yeah.
him was political. The board was political. They voted across party lines, which, come on.
But they always do.
I know it, but come on, this is ridiculous. They're not out
Right.
here to support their party. They're here to support what's good for the town.
Okay, well, maybe
Well,
it was just coincidence that
Yeah,
they
okay.
voted.
Yeah.
I'm just look.
I know.
I'm just
play the
kind of
devil's advocate. I
devil's
understand.
advocate here.
Yeah.
Maybe that is their belief instead of they weren't even thinking about party lines. I think they're thinking about party lines when they're looking to add another member to the Board of Finance. And it's like our group's bigger than yours. That's where I think
Well, The outcome
it
sounds
comes
good.
in. But
The outcome sounds good no matter what. So
I don't think, I really don't think that anybody on the Board of Finance that I've listened to during meetings seems to have a personal agenda. Have you?
no, I mean,
Not when it gets right down to the nitty gritty and talking about finances and budgets and senior center issues and that are upon us. I've never, I mean, and there are Board of Finance members that I don't agree with.
Yeah.
And some things that they
Yeah.
say. I'm not going to say who because it's
I understand.
that's my own thing. But when it comes down to town business, these folks they're also Griswold taxpayers themselves.
Yeah.
So the money affects them. It doesn't affect just you or me. It's the people that control the money.
Yeah.
And I'm telling you, the Board of Finance, the Don Corleone of Griswold.
Yes, it is. You're
They
They're-
hold
they're
the staff.
They're the staff. You can have a selectman, a second and third, all you want, but those guys run it.
They say no.
You got no.
Send the budget back.
Well,
Then it
well, it'll be interesting to see how many people come out now for the referendum, whatever that is. It's probably going to be by the end of the month, I
Well,
guess.
Well, I know one of the key points as far as the referendum was concerned, that if it went to a referendum, was that they wanted to wait until after the executive orders from Governor Lamont had been lifted.
Yeah.
So, which is on the 15th.
Yeah, so it'll be by the end of the month.
Right.
Yeah.
Which a lot of people are not familiar with what is even going on at town hall.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I get a little frustrated because you and I, we try to put as much town information out as possible. We put it out there. It's been in the same place for 5 years. People know where to get it, but they don't. What do? They wait to see if it comes up in Grizzle Now. I'm not adverse to Grizzle Now, but people have to understand Grizzle Now is not a news site. It is a community forum, and it is great for what it is. But if you rely, and it's not just Grizzle, it's Plainfield Residents, it's Norwich Community Forum, it's all these different boards. They are not news groups. Right. Take you and I out of the situation or out of the equation. It's still not a news group. I'm not even preaching where to go. I'm not even saying come to us. I'm just saying they're not news groups. Yeah. So when you sit there and you don't know what's going on, and you literally don't know, but all you're doing is thumb scrolling through your community board.
Yeah, it's actually people's opinion and what they believe rather than the actual facts of what's happening.
So Pam just makes a comment, says you can't put the referendum question for the senior center on the municipal election ballot because only the borough residents can vote in a municipal election.
I don't think he's going to do that, are they?
No, I think that's just what Pam was just making a comment.
No, they're not.
Yeah, that wasn't mentioned today. That wasn't talked about. I think what had happened is they were talking about doing a referendum with both items. That was not a good idea.
And I would have thought that because now you got no chance for anything to happen. I would think it'd be wrong to do that. Give one the opportunity to pass, and then give the second one the opportunity to pass.
Yeah. Depending on the order that they do them, do you think that makes a difference? Meaning, if you do the budget first,
I would,
and then do the one for the senior center, or vice versa.
I think if the senior center one goes first, and I feel this is what could happen.
First one gets passed.
The first one does not get passed.
Okay, all right. Why?
We have a lot. I'm just saying.
Just
throwing something out there. If the first one doesn't get passed, I still say that there are a lot of seniors in this town. You ain't going to pass my stuff? Screw you. I ain't going to pass your stuff.
Yeah.
So now we're into a crisis where we got no budget passed. And that could happen.
Sure could.
Because you're going to, a lot of seniors, they're going to take them off. That could happen.
The senior community in Griswold is the fastest growing demographic in town.
It's a lot.
Yeah. And it's continuing to grow.
Yes. And they can organize.
Yeah.
Can organize a hell of a lot quicker than a lot of the locals can.
I don't, the other thing is, too, I don't know if I actually follow the school of thought, too, of saying, well, we're seniors and we're going ahead. We have been paying taxes for years for your school, even though we don't have any kids. And now it's vice versa. I
don't think that they would do that.
No, I've heard it.
Have you heard it?
Oh,
yeah.
Not really just from seniors, but from everybody.
Yeah.
From different, not everybody. That's wrong to say, but I mean, just people I have heard may have made the comment, and it's an us against them kind of thing. And I don't think it should be looked at like that.
Yeah. I just think that it's wrong to, and I mentioned this to Scott, and I'll repeat it again, that you can't hold it against a group of people for somebody else's mistake. Just because somebody made the mistake and didn't follow through and go through the process of identifying what was going on, now you're going to hold a group of people who deserve this building. It's their fault. It's not their fault. If you want to criticize somebody or go after somebody, go after whoever was in charge of the damn thing.
We just got a comment from Nikki. That's an unfortunate thought process. No one wants to not have a senior center. An increase in taxes affects the seniors too. The nice thing, or the redeeming item that I think is pretty important with our conversation with Scott Davis, is that by taking the money out of the general fund, there's going to be zero increase in taxes.
Nothing.
So essentially, the money's already been paid
Sure.
by Griswold residents.
Absolutely.
So now it's basically, do the residents of Griswold, will they approve? I think they have to word it properly too. Instead of saying do they approve $760,000, to go towards the finish of the Griswold Senior Center. Is that a that's wordsmithing right there.
Yeah. I mean, whoever writes it up in way there, I don't know how they're going to write it up, but it's no impact for the taxpayer, which is
zero. Yeah.
Yeah. Because this money is already there, which is good. So hopefully that will change people's minds and say, yeah, let's get the damn thing done. Because my guess, to maintain that building per year, I mean, you're probably talking $40,000-$50,000 at least.
Yeah.
Time you talk, insurance and electricity and heat.
Either way, we're on the hook for a 20-year bond.
Yeah. For nothing.
Either way.
Yeah.
So if we're going to go ahead and take $760,000, now this is my personal opinion now.
Yeah.
If you're going to take $760,000, that is surplus, that is in the general fund or the rainy day fund.
Yeah.
Then I think that you use it, especially if it does not and will not affect the town's credit rating. So if we were to go to get another bond down the road, we can still the town can still qualify for the better rates because their credit rating hasn't been affected at all.
Right.
And it's what, 12% of what they have?
12%. Yeah. It's about 5.6 million, I think he said.
Right.
Something like that. Yeah. So let's also keep in mind, folks, that this senior center, all those food boxes that are being distributed, where the hell do you think they're coming from? The senior center is distributing those food boxes, and they've done it how many times during this whole COVID thing?
Well, let's make it clear: the senior center is not paying for those,
but they're the ones that have taken.
They're the ones that are distributing the boxes and.
I mean, if you didn't have them there, who the hell was going to do it?
Well, that's a great question there, Paul, because that leads into something else that I wanted to talk about.
Uh-oh.
So let's get into this, and I'll tell you why.
Okay.
So lately, in the last couple of days, I've seen a little bit of complaining about the town of Griswold not having a Facebook page.
Oh.
It wouldn't matter. It wouldn't matter if the town of Griswold has a Facebook page. It just wouldn't matter.
I think they had one at one time.
They did. It was decommissioned.
Yeah.
By the current administration.
Yep. And
that was that. But if the town had a Facebook page, it would not matter. And I'll tell you why. Because, and folks, you can hate on me for saying this, but the fact remains, people go in and think that they're going to get all of their news supplied through Griswold Now.
No.
People as a whole, maybe not you listening, but they thumb scroll. They keep going. And I know it sounds very repetitive of me to say this, but it is true. And if it's not in Griswold Now, then it didn't happen. So it would take somebody to go ahead and share information into Griswold Now for people to see it, because they're not going to see it.
Right.
They're not going to see it. 10% of the people that subscribe to that page will actually see it. Why? Because people don't go to that page or any other page because it needs to be spoon-fed. If it's not spoon-fed, then people will say, well, I didn't know about that.
Yeah.
You didn't know about it because you didn't go to the page, or you didn't go to where you needed to go.
Right.
If you're thinking it's going to come up in your news feed, guess what? It's not going to. And it's not your fault. It's the way Facebook operates. So if I stop going to your personal profile on Facebook, Paul, and just stop going, then guess what? Anytime you post stuff, it's not going to come up in my timeline.
Yeah.
Because Facebook is going to say, well, this is not an important interaction because you're not interacting with Paul Lash.
Right.
So it just kind of goes away. And this is what happens with any of these pages when you're sitting there and you're scrolling through one.
Yeah.
So let's say you get your news from the Norwich Bulletin. That's fine. Unless somebody is sharing something in Grizzled now about the Norwich Bulletin, you're not seeing it.
Right. No, you're right. No. I'd be
But
curious.
I don't want to. I feel bad. I feel bad when people, say, "Well, I don't, or I didn't know this quote unquote was happening."
No, it's their own fault. We've said that for I don't know how long.
I don't know, 5 years.
Yeah. Just like people weren't even
I
aware.
know. And I'm not mad.
Yeah.
I'm not mad at people. I mean, I do the same thing.
I mean, up until
I just don't
recently, people didn't even know they were building a senior center. I mean, come on, it's like, holy cow, when did they approve that?
So this is a long diatribe, to get into what I was talking about. Somebody they were talking about yesterday. Oh, you know what? Maybe somebody should at the town hall should have a senior center page, or I mean a town hall page, and update it every day or every other day. Disable comments so you don't get any, that kind of crap going on. And I keep hearing somebody should do that.
But nobody does.
Why don't you do it?
I know.
Why don't you do it?
That's the one thing I've always said, that the town does not communicate very well with its residents.
And it is not the residents' onus to go ahead and say, okay, well, I need to create some sort of informational tool to get the information out there.
Oh, here he comes. Here he
Hey,
comes. Have a seat, Jim.
It's F-bomb Barney. Going on.
I just came down to see if you guys had anything interesting to talk about this morning.
well, you missed it.
You missed it.
Well, hey,
Did you listen to the-
Hold on. Did you listen to the program this morning?
I've been running errands all morning.
Okay, is
so
that a
I did
yes or
not-
is that a no?
That's a no.
All right. There you go.
Okay. Have you heard what happened at the Board of Finance meeting?
Yeah, I was watching it.
Oh, you did? So you're aware of it?
I was actually trying to watch two Zooms simultaneously. They were both
Oh.
at 7:00 last
So
night.
you got one on one eye and one on the other,
One on one ear, one on the other. Yeah.
huh? Split eye.
As if I got it correctly, they're going to take up to $760,000 out
Yeah.
of the surplus
Yeah.
fund.
Also, one of the Nikki, I think I missed this question here. Does the money go back into the general fund? I don't think so. I think this is money that's already been spent.
No, the money hasn't been spent yet, but
Well,
we need to spend it. to
No,
finish
not
the
spent.
building.
I apologize. I mean, the money has already been put there by taxpayer money.
Oh, it's already there.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
there.
It's there.
So it's already available. I guess the question is there, or the answer is the residents have already spent that money on taxes, and that's why that money is there.
Exactly.
What other Zoom meeting were you watching last night?
Something totally.
Something totally different.
No, that's okay.
Yeah. So I guess why don't they just schedule Zoom meetings and to record, and that way people can watch it at a different time.
Like I
Oh,
say, I tried
sometimes,
that.
I think sometimes that is done depending on the entity that's doing it.
Yeah, I knew I couldn't get in.
See, now the town of
You
Griswold,
couldn't get in.
that's because somebody didn't let you in, and it's not a personal thing. They just may not have been watching.
Yeah, I just
May not have been looking.
couldn't get in. Kept telling me you wait for somebody to let you in. They never let me in. So, that's right.
Did Dana Bennett not stream the meeting
I
last
did
night?
not see her on Facebook. I don't think she streamed it.
See, now that's another interesting situation.
Yeah.
Dana has,
She's done it.
she has done it.
Yeah.
And it's been wonderful that, she has done it, for, the residents and taxpayers of Griswold. However, it's not up to her to do it. And it's a lot of work. And that lady was running around, from place to place, person to person.
Yeah.
To show them, to show who's on the air. But,
Well, I participated in a lot of Zoom meetings, okay, and conducting this Zoom meeting at the location that it is, and I don't know if that's the total problem or not, is somewhat close to being worthless.
Yeah. Well, the town hall's opening up in a couple of weeks, so hopefully these meetings will come back to the big room down there, which is people a little closer, and not closer, but it's not a gigantic, like a gymnasium, it might be.
Jim just made a very
Yeah.
important observation
Yeah.
about the Griswold Middle School, which was the facility that they used. And I know they're trying to follow COVID regulations, being
You want more F-bombs?
no,
Okay.
and we're not even talking about the vaccine. So I'm not ever talking about the vaccine again. All right, when you're here. So, but I know the middle school is
Echo.
the echo can be fixed. The echo can be fixed, with microphones and
Well, I've been
being
wondering
proper, but
if the speakers that are mounted on the walls in the auditorium are part of a feedback network somehow or other. I don't
I
know
don't think
that
they're using that.
No, I don't think so either.
They're not using any kind of PA system there at all. They're just they're speaking at the meeting. I think if they use lapel microphones, you'd be fine.
Yeah.
But the thing is that the internet connection within the Griswold Middle School is not good. Unless you're actually directly plugged in, it's not good. Not good at all. The Wi-Fi in there is spotty at best.
Well, let me ask you this. When I could see Scott and I could see a couple of other people there clearly. Myself, I seem to be blurred, a double image, and huge delays in any motion that I would make. Now, I was blaming it. I was blaming it on my own stuff. Was that the school stuff? Was that the problem?
Possible.
Yeah, I mean, I would say it would be the school's internet. Yeah.
Okay, because I mean, I hadn't seen.
There's
this
going to be a
before.
delay on those things anyway. On Zoom, on services called like Melon, StreamYard, any of these. If you're using a system called OBS, there's going to be a certain delay.
I mean, like if I turned my head like this, it would be. Sometimes it didn't even happen. I mean,
But if there's an internet connection, that's going to make it kind of spotty. Yeah. The internet connection there is not great.
and
You know, so when-
and you get a huge echo chamber besides.
Yeah. So when somebody is in there using their cell phones, whatever, trying to forget it, you're going to go in and out. I mean, Dana Bennett was lucky, that she maintained service, both with her phone and her legs to run back and forth.
Right.
You have to give that lady 100% credit, man, because if it wasn't for Dana Bennett at this point, then nothing would be, and you couldn't hear anything.
No,
On the Zoom for the school,
you couldn't hear.
you can't hear anything.
Yeah, but she would run right up close and.
Well, yeah, because nobody would watch the Zoom because you couldn't understand it or
Right.
anything. Anyway, I guess Cindy has just posted that Dana had posted that she was not able to make it. Okay, so here we are. Where we are talking now about relying on another resident to be there.
I don't know what the town's problem is of getting somebody to go in professionally and money.
It's money.
Well,
Okay, I mean,
it's
Ed Burdick-
not $100,000 for crying out loud.
No, I mean, but Ed Burdick and I were working on trying to get Atlantic Broadband
It ain't gonna happen.
stuff in there to be able to broadcast town meetings and stuff.
Ain't gonna
like that.
happen.
And the major impediment, as I understood it, was who was going to be there to do the work? Who is somebody going to do that for nothing?
I've said it a million times about portable DJs. If you can buy all the music you want and the biggest stereo speakers in the world, but if you got nobody there to sit there and work it and somebody there that knows what the hell they're doing, guess what?
It's worthless.
It's worthless. I used to see DJs, advertise themselves. We have the largest music library. Well, you don't know anything about that music. Guess what? You suck. You're not worth the money.
Oh, well.
Yeah, and how many, you can have 10,000 records, but how many are you gonna play at at anything, you know?
Do you know how many songs are actually played in a average 5-hour wedding?
Maybe 70.
65.
Pretty
Yeah.
good guess for a guy that doesn't know anything.
It's funny too because it's about 12 to 13 songs an hour, depending on time and you got there's a whole bunch of factors, but yeah, about 65 is the number, which you can put on one stick. But you know what happens is you have to have that music available. Why? Because people are going to come up and they want to go ahead and can you play old time rock and roll?
Oh yeah.
Can you play Moni Moni?
Yeah.
Can you play something by the Righteous Brothers? How about the Twist? We ain't done the Twist in 70 years. Come on, baby. Let's do it. Oh, shit. That's my hip. Wasn't an F-bomb, Jim.
I know it wasn't, but as I was told by somebody once a long time ago, like about 65 years ago, probably. Okay.
To do the Twist?
You can call a rose anything you want, but it doesn't smell any different. So I mean, just because you say something that's not offensive, but you mean it in an offensive manner, okay? You got the point.
So being passive aggressive.
Well, you're always passive
I
aggressive.
am not.
Jesus.
You're nuts.
Ask Paul.
Am I passive aggressive, Paul?
I ain't going
Are
there.
you guys having private conversations? Is that what's happening here?
No.
That could be.
Is this a coup against me? Do I have to get paranoid now?
Well, aren't you sometimes anyways?
Yes.
Okay. At least he admits it. Most of us don't.
That's true.
I have a whole range of emotions.
And we all have a whole range of faults.
I'm an actor. I'm a thespian.
Well, I am not.
Oh well.
What you see is what you get.
And that's pretty much me too.
So we have no comments on anybody's side.
No, people have been making comments, but I thought there would have been more comments
With Scott.
than with Scott. There were 0 comments
Really?
with Scott.
Well,
There were plenty of people that were
well, I think
on
he
the
kind
different.
of laid it out pretty much some way
Yeah.
at the meeting, and I think people were all interested in what they heard was probably all.
Well, he kind of laid his
Yeah.
position out before, at the very beginning of the meeting.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, I know he's not happy.
Yeah.
And I can understand why he's not happy.
Well, I don't think anybody's particularly happy.
But the water's already over the dam. So what are you going to do?
We have plenty of listeners and viewers, throughout the different social media platforms that were used. But I'm surprised there were no questions.
Yeah.
Well,
Because I think he laid it pretty much.
Yeah, you guys are
called
right.
it
Yeah.
Well, you
Right
gotta-
on the bunny.
You got to remember, it was a special meeting, so there was no audience participation anyways.
That's why this is great to circumvent that, because you can almost have that feeling of having audience participation. And then guess what? Then we have those people on the air and then we can ask those questions.
Yeah.
So even though it's a special meeting, we can still invite comments,
Yeah.
questions, concerns.
Right.
That way, after a meeting, during another an external broadcast, we can present those questions or comments, concerns to whoever is on the air with
but
us.
at that point, it's useless. It's what I've bitched about as far as public forum. Okay, some committees have public forum at the beginning, some have public forum at the end, and I understand why you need to do that. Okay, but if you have a public forum at the beginning and none at the end,
Yeah,
okay,
yeah.
then what value is the public?
doesn't make
forum?
any
Not,
sense.
basically.
Yeah.
It's not
Yeah.
because you can't comment on what they were talking
Yeah.
about. I mean, I think having a special meeting and not having comments, it would have been chaos if they had an audience participation, because I think it would have been, let them resolve the issue first, let them come up with something to resolve it, and then let people comment.
Well,
on
you
it.
have contentious issues during regular meetings too,
Well,
when you
yeah.
have the public forum. So, I mean, I don't think there's a big difference, Paul.
But see, doing it like this also gives residents the feeling, or that they are able to participate.
Yeah.
Because the questions, will reach who it
Yeah. And
needs
plus,
to
plus,
be reached. So
since you've got, you've got this probably taped as well, right?
yeah, this is tape.
Yeah,
Yeah,
a lot of people will be able to listen to this and what Scott said at a later time during the
Yeah.
day to find out actually what happened at the meeting, which is probably good,
Mhm.
Otherwise they wouldn't have any idea what the hell was
Yeah.
going on.
Well, that is.
If it was put on one of the social media platforms, A now becomes B and C becomes B and A, it'd be so gobbled up, nobody would know what the hell the facts were.
But the problem with social media, Paul, is that there is a lot of us that do not participate in social media.
A lot of people don't. You're right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Tomorrow we have Todd Babbitt on.
Oh, we do.
Yes,
Oh,
tomorrow morning. So that'll be on at a little after 8 tomorrow morning. So
Oh.
so I'm sure there'll be questions about this and
yeah. Somebody's going to point the finger at somebody. Yeah,
It's the nature of the beast.
I know. Yeah.
you're gonna join me tomorrow morning.
I might. I gotta look at my schedule.
8 a.m. You'll be up.
I've been up since 3 this morning.
That's what I mean. You, on the other hand, you're always welcome, but
I know.
you
We'll
never
see.
know. Sometimes.
Sometimes I like to come when he comes. I like to find out what's happening with some of
Yeah.
the stuff that's going on in town. Yeah. So
One thing I do notice too about you, Paul, is that not only if you're not here, sometimes you dial in.
well, listen. Sometimes I listen.
Yeah. So which makes me feel good because you actually there's value to
Yeah.
for what we do. So
Yeah.
you're not just here playing a part. You're actually trying to get and give information, which is one of the things I respect about you. So, you too, Jim. Even though you don't listen.
Although I got in trouble the other day with my friend at the
With what?
Well, got in trouble with the youth center.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, it
Oh,
happened.
I
said
What
something.
happened there?
I don't know. I said something. Didn't like it.
Yeah.
Oh, that was that the morning I was in here. You said something.
Yeah, I must have said something.
Yeah, Ryan's taking him out.
Taking me out.
Yeah. It's gonna be
There's nothing against Ryan. I mean, it's nothing. It's just a comment. That's
No. It's not what you said during. It was what you said afterwards.
Oh, I said after.
Yeah.
Oh well.
He doesn't know that yet. I haven't told him the comments that you have made. I think you said something, to the liking of, I hope Aubin jumps into the ring with me because I am Lash the Lover.
What?
I don't know where that came from.
And I will go ahead and crush Ryan Aubin. Nobody in town likes Ryan Aubin anyway. That's a good way to get some heat on you, dude.
I think he turned the mic off when he was just saying that. I'm not
Oh,
sure.
no. It had there's this little echo chamber.
The echo.
Yeah, he's got the echo factor
Oh, well.
on there.
Well, on a totally different subject.
Yes, sir.
See how our audience feels about it. How do you? I'd like to know how our audience feels about the fact that Major League Baseball is pulling
Well,
the All-Star game from Atlanta, Georgia.
I still don't understand why.
something to do
With voting, but what does voting and Major League Baseball have anything to do with one
I
another?
agree. It's political, but there's somehow whatever the law is, somebody has not put it out there correctly. Apparently, the left side's interpreting it one way, and the governor of Georgia is really not saying that's what it means. And I'm not quite sure what the issues are. Maybe you know more than I do, but
I
I don't
it
understand
at all.
why it's become a political thing. Why? I mean, they're hurting the people of Atlanta, Georgia.
Mhm.
A lot of the folks who are dependent on a lot of that money coming into the All-Star game. I heard and I read that the governor of Texas refused to throw out the baseball for the Rangers game, opening day because of what happened in Atlanta. I don't know. Where's it heading? Isn't it going towards Washington someplace?
The last I
I
had
don't
heard,
know.
they haven't chosen a spot.
Yeah. So I mean, it's like ridiculous. What the hell is going on here? Why is
I think the thing is,
But
ridiculous.
it's not only baseball. It's Coca-Cola and Delta. Those other two are ticked off about.
Delta.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I was the ultimate sports fan. I used to listen to doubleheader baseball games on the radio. Now, if you can tell me anything more boring than that, I can't.
It's
think
not
of it.
boring. Matter of
Okay.
fact, listening to baseball or any sport on the radio is so much better than watching it on TV because you get a better description.
That's
Yeah.
true. That's true. But as far as I'm concerned, I have had it with professional sports. I had tickets to a Patriots game 35 years ago and I threw them away. Okay. That's how disenchanted I am with professional sports. And not only that, the taxpayers in many of these municipalities are actually the professional sports get a lot of tax breaks. Okay. Why should they get a tax break any more than any other business? Now, yes, I could argue it from the point of economic development. Okay. But there's lots of people that could care whether professional sports even exist any longer.
I can tell you
and I'm one of them at this point.
Last year, I spent, matter of fact, Melissa and I were talking about this because somehow randomly the Philadelphia 76ers Boston Celtics game ended up on the TV. Don't know how it happened because neither one of us were home for a spell. We came back and was both on. It was on the TV. And we were talking about how she had, subscribed to ESPN, Plus for her son, and all this. And then I said, did you turn the game on? She goes, no. I said, well, neither did I. And I told her, I said, I have not engaged in 2020 at all in sports. I didn't even, nothing. I didn't care about baseball. I didn't care about football.
I got more enjoyment out of watching my grandson play baseball and football than I get out of any professional sports at this particular point.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think a lot of people are being turned off by sports, not just baseball.
Mhm.
It's basketball. It's
curling,
curling, football. Although football still seems to be
badminton,
everybody's mind. But yeah, you're right. I just think people are getting turned off by it because it's becoming political, which it shouldn't be.
Full contact karaoke.
Baseball. How American is baseball? I mean, between baseball, hot dogs, and going
apple
to the
pie.
Game, apple pie, right? Going to the game. That's it.
Yeah, baseball used to be that was the premier sport in this country. I think it's been replaced by football at this point.
Baseball, apple pie, and a hot dog, right?
Yeah,
right. The whole thing, right? That's $45 at Fenway, just for that.
Yeah, well, and then buy a ticket.
I was looking those up. Some of those tickets, the lowest ones I could find were like $160
for a regular game.
That's a lot of money.
Okay, and here's another
700 by the dugout.
Let's remove the tax deductions. Let's remove the tax deductions that corporations get for buying, $100,000 a year box seat or something like that.
Yeah.
Let's totally remove that. Let's see what happens to professional sports at that point.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's that deduction for businesses is costing every one of us sitting here dollars every time.
Yeah. A lot of people aren't participating in sports either. A lot of them are. Look what happened down to the Mohegan Sun. The Wolves left. Yeah. They're gone. I mean, why did they leave? There had to have been because there probably was not a lot of participation to go to the games. But there's a professional sports team that left. So.
There wasn't a lot. I mean, I know they didn't have very many people at the games, and most of the tickets that people utilized were ones that were given them.
Right. Well, without getting into the left versus right side of the equation, I mean, I have to believe there was an unbelievable amount of voter fraud in elections in recent terms. Not just this one. This one was probably the worst, but it's been going on for a period of time.
It's been going on for years.
Okay. Why? I mean, you have to have a picture ID in order to show a police officer if you get stopped. Okay, driving your vehicle, you have to have a picture ID to board Delta Airlines. Sure. Why shouldn't you have a picture ID to qualify as a voter?
Yeah, and my understanding is that the voting law allowed them to vote like on weekends, allowed them to vote late at night. I mean, it was enhanced way to allow them to even get in to vote better. I mean, so I don't know what the big issue was unless we're missing something. I don't know, but it seems to me like somebody just took it and really took it like it was really bad. You know, you can turn anything around and make
Well,
it
what
look
was bad about it?
I don't know. I didn't read the whole article. I kind of stayed away from it, but
But even on the surface, it doesn't make sense.
it doesn't. When you go down here to vote, guess what you got to show?
Your ID.
Absolutely.
A lot of places you don't have to do that.
Yeah.
Wait until we have to show our
COVID ID.
COVID ID.
I know.
or our what are they going to call it?
Your
Our,
vaccine passport.
Vaccine passport, vaccination passport. Yeah. All right, here's a comment. Donna says, I'm with you, Paul. Kids' sports are more enjoyable to watch. Professional sports are getting to be political, and the average family cost to attend is way too costly.
Wow.
And he's spot on.
And that was that was part of my
Yeah.
protest about sports. Is I don't think a man or a woman should have to spend a week's pay to take their family to a ball game.
Yeah, you know what? About 4 years ago, my son, who lives out in Kansas City, came out and he wanted to go to a Red Sox game because he's a Kansas City Royals fan and the Royals were in Boston. So I said, okay. Now there's this little trick that if you don't have any tickets for the game, you can always go to Gate C before the game.
That's where the scalpers hang out.
No.
Oh.
No. Matter of fact, it's just the box office, and then they open up where they have 2 tickets, 3 tickets, 1 ticket, single tickets, if you want to get into the game. Well, we got there and they had tickets. So it was like 7 rows back. We were $175 a piece. By the time we were done, or I should say I was done,
You were close to $500.
$500. It was a $500 day.
Yeah.
Sure. Were there things that we could have gone ahead and not done, like taking a rickshaw from the parking garage to the park? Sure. It was fun. Yeah. It was only
And
$20.
how often do you see your kid?
Exactly.
Yeah.
So
It's a memory for him and you.
and both of us. Maybe even more for me.
Yeah.
But it was really cool. So we had a great day. But but the cost was you're spot on. It's about $500.
Yeah.
And why is the cost so much? It's because look what we're paying these professional players to play.
I mean, we didn't.
Millions and millions of dollars to play baseball.
It was $10 for a lemonade. For a 16-ounce lemonade.
You could have brought your own lemons in and sucked on those.
You could have bought a lemon tree.
Popcorn was $8. Popcorn.
Unbelievable.
Little ice cream bars were $6.
And whose fault is that? It's our fault because we pay the price.
Yes.
Don't pay the price. What are they
Yeah.
going to do?
Right.
You can't stop that. They're going to pay it because it's about the experience. It's about the experience, about being at this big ballpark, being with 25, 30,000 of your best friends in the world, all screaming for the same thing.
Well,
And what's gonna make it better? How about a hot dog? How about a beer? How about a soda? Ice cream.
Not like having a ballpark Frank.
Fenway Frank.
Ah,
And it's a freaking hot dog. No different than anything else.
I know.
If I never had another hot dog in my life, it would make me happy.
Oh. See, that's another story too. Is that
But we got almost no response in regards to the voting issue down in Georgia.
yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
because it doesn't.
Almost no. I mean, no, you got none.
Yeah,
there was
because it doesn't impact.
Huh?
It doesn't impact us locally.
It indirectly it does, Paul.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, I don't think most rational people would deny that there's a lot of voter fraud.
I'm curious now what is going to happen now down in Atlanta. What's going to happen as a result of this follow-up?
Well, I think
somebody's going to do something about it.
I think the governor or the legislature said something. Obviously, Major League Baseball is getting a big tax breakdown. They're going to take the tax break away. Good. I hope they do.
Yeah, because they really stuck it to the Atlanta Braves, and they also stuck it to the people of Atlanta.
Hmm.
I mean, millions and millions of dollars that they were planning on.
90 million was the estimate I heard.
Really big number. So that's pretty bad. Yeah. So
And
Oh.
it makes no sense to me.
it doesn't make any sense. I mean, just why is baseball involved with political issues? I don't know.
And of course, you see, the people won't stand together. Okay, if every other city, major league city, refused to hold an All-Star game, what are they going to do?
That'll never happen because somebody wants those
Well,
dollars.
That's what I said, Mike. The people won't stand together.
Don't tell me if it's not offered to a community like San Diego, they're not going to say, "Yeah, come on."
I agree.
What about people that have already bought plane tickets to go to the?
Screwed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, interesting point.
Yeah. And bought the tickets already.
Yeah.
I'm sure the tickets have been out there for sale. Now what are they going to do? They're going to travel some other place to go to the game?
What? How many patrons does the stadium hold in Atlanta?
I don't know.
Probably at least 50,000.
50, 60, I would think. Yeah.
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 That's a fairly new stadium too, right?
So
Right-
if
right-
It's not Atlantic Fulton County Stadium anymore. No?
So if each one of those 50,000 people influence 10,000, influence 10 more people to forsake major league
Yeah.
sports, and they influence 10, it wouldn't take very long before you had nobody going to major league sports.
It's not gonna
I'd
happen.
be interested.
No, I know it isn't going to happen. Mike.
It'd be interested to know what some of the folks that are involved with the city, vendors and people like that, what their thoughts are on this thing. What does the normal taxpayer think in Atlanta of what happened? How do they feel about they voted it in. It's not like, because it was voted into to change it.
Well, that's the legislature. So, that's only a small number of people. That's the problem. You got 435 jerks in Washington that set
Yeah.
the policy for 350 million people.
Yeah, you're right. So maybe the people in Atlanta, maybe they're not happy with it. I don't know.
Well, we may never know. Kind of like how many licks does it take to get to the center of a Tootsie Roll Pop? We may
It
never
depends on
know.
how wet your tongue is.
There you go. We may never know. Well, good conversation today with Scott Davis and of
Yeah, it
course
was good.
Jim. It's always nice to have F-bomb Barney showing up.
F-bomb.
You'll never live that down. F-bomb Barney. You did it once. Once. That's all it takes, Jim. Once.
Keep agitating me about it, Mike, and you'll hear it every day.
It'll be two-time Barney. Oh my goodness. All right. So if you missed the conversation with Board of Finance chairman, how do you say that anymore? I mean, do you say chairperson? Do you
Just say Scott.
all right, Scott. The conversation with Scott.
That's better. That way, no pronouns.
I didn't ask what his pronouns
No.
were, you know. That'll be up a little bit later on, and we'll replay it as well. So thank you.
Yeah.
Todd Babbitt tomorrow morning. Thank you, Jim. Maybe you'll be here tomorrow.
Possibly.
Spice up the conversation. Got to bring headphones because Todd won't be in studio. He'll be on the phone. So anyway, okay.
All right.
All right, boy. Lots of excitement there.
Yep.
Oh boy. See you tomorrow.
You got it.
And let's see, Phil Michelle, 12 to 1. And of course, the one and only Angela from 2 to 6, right here on SNSN. We will see you tomorrow.
Don't just wish for a winning deal. Make it Dish. It will make it real. Don't just wish. Make it Dish.
Hey everyone, this is Ellis Dish from Dish Motors. We're back better than ever with our new sales and service center on Route 32 in North Franklin. Everyone says there's nothing better